What's up, everybody? I'm the Bat Otter, and I'm back with Volume 8 of Berserk. Last video, we went over the very beginning of the volume, Guts fighting Zod, seeing Griffith for the first time. And I went over it a little slower, and that's what I'm going to do with this video, except I'm going to skip over Griffith taking over and beating the Kushans. I know that, as far as the story is concerned, it's pretty important, but to me, it can be summed up as they are introducing the next three big boss fights for Guts as Griffith establishes his own kingdom, and as Guts has to fight that inevitably. So it was cool, but I mean, it was your run-of-the-mill introductions. They're scary, they're mean, they're menacing, and they're probably apostles as well. But I did want to go over this specific spread because it's like it says. It says instead it was like an inimitable painting. And while this is in black and white, you can very much feel, even without the context of this, that it's a very dramatic moment and a turning point in the story, and something that will be very important as the story goes on. But, knowing me, just gonna skip over it. You get another nice shot of Griffith. All the shots of Griffith are nice. And it gets into the moral ambiguity of, well, if Griffith runs the kingdom pretty well and takes care of everybody, were the sacrifice is worth it, yada, yada, yada. All that philosophical stuff that a bunch of nerds on the internet like to argue about with Berserk. And, do it to their heart's content, right? We were surely in the midst of some extraordinary fairy tale. And I think it's even a change for the theme of Berserk moving forward as well. This whole arc, because you'll see that phrase repeated a lot through this book. Like we were in the midst of a fairy tale. There's another great shot later on in the book. Spoilers, I guess. Where, what do you call it? Griffith, he's establishing his kingdom. He's establishing the army. It's this one right here. And we're getting introduced to some more characters. Perhaps it belonged to the domain of legends. And this is a great shot. There are lots of great spreads in this volume 8. It's just I don't want to go over all the story because some of it is just run-of-the-mill story, if I'm being honest. Not bad, just not worth really reviewing. There's nothing much to say about it, especially if you already know Berserk. But I did want to go over the sort of origin story to Serpico and Farnese because it's cold. We actually got a cold front here in South Texas. And I like the cold. I'm very much a fan of it. And so these snowy scenes that we get, we don't get a lot of these in Berserk, but the way that Miura is able to illustrate that kind of cold, lonely feeling where you're huddling for warmth, stuff like that, the environment that he creates with a lot of the snowy weather is very, very appealing to me. And it adds to the mood of the entire story, and a lot of these characters, it's used as a segue into some of these memories, like in the last one where Guts said, that's why I abandoned Griffith, but this time it was me being abandoned in the snow. But for Serpico and some of these characters that we're going to be introduced to, he too has memories of a very cold winter and how that correlates to the spot in the story now. And I like that, like I said, those little details that Miura adds to the story that seem kind of meaningless but have that much substance to them that it's enough to get you going. So Serpico, he is a bastard child raised by a mother who pretty much has dementia. She's going a little bit Looney Tune, and he's having to take care of her, but he's poor, right? So these kids make fun of him, and one day he was beaten, and it's a very emotional story, and I really liked it just like I liked the last one, and so I'm going to review it in a bit of the same ways. With all of the black and white, almost simplistic illustrations that accompany it, it's so much like a memory. It's so much like, instead of showing you exactly what it was, it shows you kind of what you remember, because you don't remember exact details. And he's left in the snow. He says, I can't move. At this rate, I'll be buried. Maybe that's just as well. Might be easier. Until he's found by a young Farnese. Now, we know from previous chapters, Farnese was a bit of a Looney Tune whenever she was a kid. And we get to explore a lot more of it and see really why all these characters are the way that they are. And it's so unique and adds to what I always say, that these characters feel so alive. He gets saved by Farnese, and she says, I'm the one who saved your life, so now you belong to me. At this time, it was beyond my ability to fathom. That's how he remembers it. And his mother loves that he's getting taken by an aristocrat, because she's saying that his father was a high aristocrat. He's gonna come back for stuff like that, and as we'll find out later, that plays an important role. So Farnese, as he puts it, all in the mansion tread fearfully around this little tyrant. She has no father. She has this entire mansion for herself, and she is the king of the crop. She tells everybody what to do, and it's accompanied by great details. I almost have to show every page. I'll do my best to only show what's necessary. Her father, Lord Vandeman, was zealous. Her mother was losing herself and abandoned her. So her parents buried her things to express their love. But she's a little girl in this huge mansion with all this religion and politics that she just doesn't understand. She's just a child, and she saw all those people being burned. And so this is one of the best parts of the story here, where she really just kind of loses it, and we see the way that this child loses their mind in this big, perfect world, the holy city, she's rich, all these different things. But we see why, and it really, the illustrations speak for themselves. With such excellent dialogue, something ghastly compelled her. It was this abnormal behavior that repulsed the people around her. That's why she can't make all these relationships. Until we find that she has this little tree where she goes to burn animals, and as she puts it, the crematory. Until one day her father finally returns, and he sees that little bunny that she had. And you think, why is that so important to her? Well, it tells you. Years ago, the family took a trip, and she nagged her father to buy the rabbit for her. But the father says, as you see here, what is that filthy doll? Throw that out. I can order you as many ones as you like. Throws that one away. But that's important to her because that's the only part of her father. And it's really sad. And so as she's burning the doll, Serpico goes to her and, tries to take care of her because they're in this really weird servant relationship that only he can take on for her. And she says, leave or I'll burn you up as well. And we get this great little monologue here. Before a child ever grasps for happiness, he buries that part of himself that adapts to reality until before long his true self vanishes as the snow piles up in the labyrinth, just like the snow was piling up on him because they live in this labyrinth. She makes everybody afraid of her because she's desperate to be the one that is feared, as they say. Here, the father finds out that Serpico is actually his son whenever he finds the locket that the mother gave him, and he tells the mother, and she says, oh, great, he's going to come visit me. And in exchange for not ratting on the king, he allows Serpico to stay. And we end it with, we do not have the power now to melt the snow that lies thick about us. Perhaps we wanted merely to feel the warmth in each other, a warmth that we have in common because they're siblings. She doesn't know, he does. And it adds to this really messed up relationship. And as they age, she sends him on little duels for her where he has to duel, but he doesn't want to kill anybody. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. So he just barely gets by and makes it a draw. And she knows that. She says, why won't you fight seriously? Your sword skill should have been enough. And this is more into this weird servant-mistress relationship that they have as they're growing older. And we see why Serpico is the way that he is, so quiet. He helps the poor kids. He's so kind of against what they're doing, but he's doing it because it's all about pleasing Farnese and taking care of her. Until he has to send his mother to a sanatorium. She no longer knew who he even was. It's a terrible, terrible story. He grew up poor, and the only person that he has is this woman who's losing her mind, who is mistreated by the royals and everything like that. And she says, no, I don't want to marry that person. And she goes out running. And he says, curious fruit left to be raised by another, but when it is ripe, the one who picks it is the owner of the forest. He goes looking, he sees her stripping in the forest, and she goes into his arms. She says, what if you were to take me and we could run away? We could be together. Because you and I are bent together. They're both messed up. They both know each other so well. They grew up in that terrible place. And she's the only one, he's the only one that she's ever formed a connection to. And it's these two young people that are seemingly, in a way, in love in their own messed up fashion. but instead he rejects her because, first of all, he's the brother. Second of all, he's the servant. He has to take care of her, and this just isn't what that is. So, he says, fathers, mothers, siblings, why was I now unable to escape from all the yokes that bound us? And she sets fire to the mansion. In doing so, the father throws them out, and the relationship is never the same since. So he puts her in charge of the Holy Chain Knights until the heretics start burning things down. And this is where the story takes a turn for the ugly. They still have this strange servant-mistress relationship where he's always going to take care of her. But it's not simply the same. She's enjoying the burning because as a kid, she saw that was the only thing that brought her pleasure, that what's made her go crazy. And that's why she would always burn things. Flames, they had scorched her heart. Perhaps Lady Farnese had found the place where she belonged in burning all these poor innocent people for the most part. And they were all burning the poor class citizens just as Serpico once was. But no gruesome spectacle I witnessed could manage to shake my heart, he says. Until then. The words are coming right out of the pages. Yes, the mother is a heretic. She was the leader of the heretics from the sanatorium, and he says to himself, mother, in just utter shock. Farnese's response to that, not realizing who that is, the rest of the people respond to that saying, wait a minute, if that's his mother, then he's a heretic. This can't be happening. The mother cannot be the mother of one of the Iron Chain Knights. This is some kind of mistake. Mother no longer understands anything. And he says, is this the reason? I hated you. I wished for your death so I might escape you. Is that the reason? Is this your revenge to me? And he feels this sort of guilt as they're burning her because he kind of left her. The father never came back for her. But Farnese says, you throw the torch. Because she needs to know that that's not his mother. She needs to know that everything about his being is for her. And that's what she says. Only I, always, now, and forever. And we end it with such a great ending. The flames, them choosing to burn the mother together, being intertwined almost, right? And he says, what did we burn to ashes? What were we delivered from? What were we enchained by? The third winter since then, we left that labyrinth we never thought we would escape, and now we're beneath the sky on a distant journey, as if trying to melt the snow with the flame. And upon the snow, the footprints alone continue on. Now, maybe I didn't do the best at expressing that chapter for y'all. If I had to say anything, I'd say go read it, because as this handful of pages, it's not too many pages really, it's very short as far as Berserk goes, you know. Yeah, I mean, look at it here. It's this many pages. Wow, there are more than I thought. It's from here to here, you guys can see. The dialogue, the ideas, the environments, the memories, all of this terrible world that they all live in. And these very, on the surface, bad relationships, you see the meaning behind them. You see how lively they feel. And the emotions of these characters have reason, have substance. It's such a great depiction of these ideas. And it makes something, it doesn't romanticize bad things, right? It makes them out to be bad, but it shows these characters trying to do their best with such terrible situations. So I really like that story. I think that some of these stories in this volume of Berserk, at least, could really work on their own. So I'd highly recommend reading that for yourself. I by no means did it justice. You need to see the artwork. You need to read it. You need to be at the pace that the book sets it. But I hope I did my best in conveying all these very meaningful and emotional ideas to y'all through this review. And of course, if it's not already obvious, I recommend at least checking it out from your library. I gotta return this soon. I think it's overdue. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I promise I won't be getting all emotional on y'all in future reviews. I'll still be reviewing normal stuff. I probably won't get too much more of this volume. I think the rest of the chapters are a little bit boring as far as Berserk is concerned. It's a lot of setup, and once we get to the wizards and witches, it's too much setup, honestly. It's too much world building. So I'll probably skip over a lot of parts if I do another video on this series. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next video, and be sure to like and subscribe. Tell me what you think of the arc, because it's honestly great. And if there are any other arcs in the series that might work as standalone that you guys might want me to cover. Other than that, I'll see you guys later.